On the bench today is a Technics SU-V36. I'm going to use this as an example of how to clean some of these controls. This one is, quite filthy, and I already sort of took it apart last night because, you don't need to see me unscrewing things. I think you all know what a screwdriver looks like. You all know what a soldering iron looks like. I'm not going to do a lot of videos on where you watch all that sort of stuff. But before we get into the cleaning, I just want to have a brief overview of this board. What's interesting, obviously, is that as they've progressed into using these Sanyo chips that basically handle all the amplification and all that sort of stuff. Just how simple now the boards are becoming. There's very little external circuitry needed to get these things to work. So as you can see, there's really just not much to it at all. I think this little board over here is the phono preamp that just adjusts the phono input. Yeah, not much to it. On behind here is basically circuitry that's really to do with the balance, tone control, and the microphone input. The microphone input has two controls. One is the level, and the other one is it adds an echo effect. Basically if you want to sing along as with karaoke or something like that. So that's really all there is to it. Okay, what I've got here is just a small bowl of water with a squirt of detergent in there. I know from doing a test piece last night that actually this requires just a little bit more than just plain water. But again, I don't want to use any harsh chemicals, so just small bit of detergent, and obviously just Q-tip or whatever you want to call it, cotton bud, and then just a bit of a rub, and there you go. You can see it starts getting it clean quite easily. It's a little bit of work. It is tempting to use something sometimes a little bit more aggressive, but I think if you care about the thing that you're cleaning, you regret it very quickly, especially if something goes wrong. Okay, I don't know if you can see that as clearly as I can, but that's actually very, very clean. Sometimes getting into these grooves is a little bit of extra work, but I've got these ones. They're rounded on one end, pointed on the other, and that seems to help quite a lot. Anyway. This is a job that rewards a little bit of patience. There you go. That looks pretty good. Just use the tissue, just make sure it's dry. Okay, so maybe you'll get a better effect if we do one of these down here. Okay, so what I've done is I've actually just pulled it out. These ones, they just pull straight out. That actually allows me to get in there and clean it out a lot easier. So basically all you have to do is pull sort of a fake stop, and then it keeps coming. There you go. And there we go. Just makes getting into it a little bit easier. Okay, I'm going to do one here in a bit of a close-up, because actually you kind of can see it getting cleaner as you go. Well, at least I can in my eyes. Does the camera pick it up? I hope so. So this is the basic technique. It's really, like I said, there's not much to it. But it is quite nice actually to see that this is coming up very well without having to do anything else, because it's just some sort of chrome plating on the plastic, so I mean it can wear out very easily. I mean, look at that, it's amazing. Just dry with a bit of tissue there. Yeah, that looks much better. So overall, I'm quite pleased with how this is turning out. There's just a little bit more there, maybe that can come off. It's probably not going to get back to perfect. It's not going to look like it came out of the factory. And I don't really care about that. It's I just don't want it to be so stained and grotty. I mean, that's nice and bright now. You can see the shine of the inner bit there. So I think this is going to look a lot better when it's all put back together. It's quite common actually for a lot of these units to have been used like in cafes or restaurants or things like that, and up until fairly recently, and even in some places still now, there's no problems with smoking inside in restaurants and cafes in Japan, depending where you go. So it could be a bit build up of a bit of everything over its life, because I don't actually know where this came from. But it was obviously used quite regularly, so who knows. So here we are, they're all finished. They've come up quite well. There's a few scratches and things on the front of here. I mean, you can't clean that off. There's still a bit of dirt stuff that's not quite coming off, but I'm pretty happy with it overall. It's much cleaner than it was. Probably over time that'll come off, but some of these came up really clean. Obviously the volume, people using this all the time, touching it all the time, I think you're always going to have a little bit extra dirt, pitting, whatever. So that maybe will come off with something a little bit harsher, but again, I'm sort of reluctant to do that because I'd rather try and keep it as is. I think you start trying to chase perfection on things like this, then you end up, you're going to end up chasing new sets of these because you're just in danger of things going wrong. This one here, obviously, is a little bit, it's not the best, but that's obviously something that's been touched quite a lot. There's others here that are come up much cleaner, but you can't clean off wear. So if that's just worn, and I think that actually is, it's part of the surface finish. You can't really do anything about it. But overall, they've come up pretty well, much cleaner than when it started. So the next job is I'll just put all these back in and we'll have a look. Okay, here it is complete after the cleaning process. Few marks, stains, things like that. They're not ever coming out. That's just the way it goes with these things. They're old. It's 30 years old, something like that. There is some sort of weird sort of splotching and whatever. That's not from cleaning, that's just from its age, and maybe, it might actually be from some cleaner that's been used previously, who knows, maybe sprayed with something. But anyway, that's as good as this is going to get for now. I'm quite happy. It looks clean. It's got rid of, it's kind of like a yellowish tinge that was sort of all over it. It looks as good as I think I can get this. It's not worth, like I said, it's not worth trying to find like a perfect facade for this and then putting it on and all that. It's just not worth it. This is not an expensive unit. I mean, it's quite good. I'm happy to have it, but it's just not worth going to that sort of effort. So that's it. That's the cleaning process as I've described. Use water, a little bit of detergent if you need it. Try and avoid using anything else. sometimes an eraser helps when you've got some marks that just don't seem to want to budge. I don't think I've got anything like that. I think everything I've got here is actually some kind of marking, which is, from impact damage or something like that. So they're not going to rub off. They're not going to clean off. A final word on what do I like to use for cleaning this sort of thing. If you've got some old sort of terry toweling like this, is probably the best. Better, the older it is, the more the fibres are broken down, the softer it becomes. Again, you avoiding using anything that's too abrasive and too abrupt. Here we are with the Technics SU-Z36. It's all back together now. Very pleased with how this came together. Everything's looking very good. Originally I thought these needed replacing or refinishing or something like that, but they've come up very clean. Basically just, almost 30 years worth of gunk on there. It did look originally, they get a sort of a look about them when the finish on the surface finish starts to corrode, but fortunately in this case that's not the case. Capacitors went in nice and easily, no dramas, nothing really to report there. I powered it on before I put it back together, and the light came on and there was no smoke, so I'm pretty happy with that. This will go back into the lounge room, and this goes into daily use because it's what I listen to. So that's it for this one. As I said, quite pleased with how it turned out. Cosmetically, it's okay. There's like a few scratches and dents and things like that, but nothing that ultimately affects it too badly. I think if I was looking at this to resell, then probably I'd choose another, but for my own use it's quite fine.